Welcome back to Limit Break 20. In today's video, we're going to be talking about making narrative adjustments to Final Fantasy XIV tabletop RPGs due to the unique base effect feature that this game has. This video can also apply to anyone playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition using the new Weapon Masteries property. In particular, it's the one called Graze. And the reason that's important is because one thing that's unique to Final Fantasy XIV tabletop RPG is that almost every ability in the game has a base effect. So whether you roll your d20 and add your modifier and you hit or miss an enemy, you're basically going to be doing some sort of damage. Now, I think it's a really cool mechanic. I mean, there's nothing worse than waiting your turn and then rolling your dice and then you miss completely. But one thing that's going to be a little bit different is narrating these misses that aren't really misses anymore, right? So the reason I did this video is because I was actually playing a session with a group online. Man, I can't believe I'm actually telling this video, but the story. And I was in the middle of sort of trying to adjust the combat, and someone had the dragoon had like made a hit with their or a miss with their dragoon combo. And I remember saying, okay, so you hit them, but you don't directly hit them. And in that moment, I immediately thought to myself, wow, that was pretty lazy GMing right there. And so I got to thinking about that. And as combat moved on, they were actually fighting a big dragon. So, spoiler alert, dragoon's fighting a dragon. But what was interesting is as that combat evolved, I found different ways to sort of narrate those misses, as in, we'll go over some examples a little bit later. But that was something that I was really kind of thinking about and kind of got hung up on, which is, wow, I'm going to have to actually make some modifications to how I narrate combat when I play this tabletop RPG, because missing just generally isn't a thing, because your base effects will always do damage. As I was thinking through this, I think there's a couple of things that can help you sort of navigate or narrate some of these encounters. So the first thing we're going to go over is we're going to go over base effect attacks for, let's call them martial characters. So think of these as the warrior or the dragoon. Melee DPS, I think, is the official term in Final Fantasy XIV tabletop RPG. And so when you're describing an attack from like the warrior, the dragoon, and you miss, let's say you're fighting a soldier and he's got a shield. Maybe when you narrate that, it's you thrust your lance in towards the opponent, but in the middle of it, he sort of like at the last moment takes his shield, and the force of your spear drives that shield back into him, and he takes 3 points of damage. Right? That would be a narrative way to say, hey, you didn't directly hit them, but you still did damage because you still did something cool. So that's sort of one way to do it. Doesn't matter if they're wearing armor, right? So you're fighting the character, your spear catches them, and it actually hits their breastplate, but the force of the spear and the blow actually caused 3 points of damage. So that's sort of one avenue. The other way I would kind of think about this is combo attacks. So let's just say the warrior declares that he's going to do his combo attack on the big enemy that he's tanking. There's one big enemy. So you could ask him to make 2 attack rolls, and let's say the first one misses, but the second one hits. Maybe what you set that up is okay, so you know that first one's going to miss, but he's still going to do some damage. So you basically launch into this giant enemy, and you throw a front kick, pushing it back, dealing 2 points of damage. Then you follow up with a swing with your great axe, and you connect with it, and you do 6 points of damage. That would be a way that you could still take the miss and kind of narrate it as in you threw a body kick or you hit them with the blunt end of the axe. A couple different ways that you could narrate that, but I think that that's something that could be effective. So now I want to move into sort of the ranged classes, ranged DPS, if you will, or any really type of caster. This would even be good for the white mage's offensive abilities. So let's say you're casting fire or stone, right? Those are the two that the offensive abilities that the black and white mages get. You could narrate that as something as so as you cast fire to the column of fire shoots from your hand and it goes to hit the enemy, but at the last minute he creates an aether shield and blocks the force of the blow, but then it shatters, causing a little bit of fire to get through, and that's going to be doing 3 points of damage, 2 points of damage, whatever it is. And you can narrate that for pretty much anything. So having some type of shield. Another thing is if you're fighting a creature, right? So you cast your first your fire one spell, and that goes and hits the creature's thick hide, and it doesn't penetrate it, but it causes it to burn intensely. Now they roll again, and that is a direct hit. That second column of fire hits out and actually punctures through the creature's thick hide and causes it to burn, and it's going to take, you know, 7 points, 8 points of damage. So again, these are just two examples of ways that you can narrate magical type of abilities or ranged abilities. If you're a game master and you're setting up your games, the one thing I would say that as you are putting together your battle maps or the creatures or your stat blocks or you're reading the adventure that you're going to be running, I would say that really start to think about what would happen if your player characters didn't get a direct hit. How would you narrate that? What might be some things that this enemy has that would maybe cause some reduced damage? And feel free to get creative with it, and don't be afraid to use something multiple times. I think your players will appreciate you just not saying you don't directly hit them. That was so cringy. Still dwelling on that a little bit. But the other thing I would say too is if you are a player who likes to narrate their attacks, and I've been actually playing with a lot more players who do like doing that, which I love because it lets them use their creativity and kind of really get into the role play of the character. Think about that as well, right? You're casting this, stone, and you're the white mage, and you go to hit the enemy, and it doesn't do a direct hit. What does that look like, right? Do maybe some fragments of the giant stone that was hurled towards them cause that to graze their arm and they start to bleed from their shoulder, right? That's just an example. Again, get creative with it, but I think that as game masters and players, when we play this system, or again you're using the Graze weapon mastery, really start to think about how you want to narrate that, because I think that that could be something that helps with the immersion of it. So that's all I had for you guys today. So hopefully you found this video useful. I know that as I was thinking about it, trying to find ways to make the narrative aspect of this more engaging was definitely top of mind. So, and if you like this content, feel free to attune to this channel by liking and subscribing, and also throw some comments down below and let me know what other videos you would like to see. So until next time, stay safe, adventurers.